Hi, everyone. Welcome to my live session today. Hopefully, it will work smoothly. Now we have done, is this my fourth or my fifth, I think? So hopefully it will work smoothly. If you say hello in the chat, that would be lovely. Today, we're going to talk about picture books and comics that you can read to bring the classical world to life at home. So please, if you have any recommendations, I would love to hear them. I have to say, I've brought quite a lot of books with me. It was a bit difficult. I felt like a little child. Oh, we're going to have show and tell almost. I want to show all my books. And then I thought, no, there's no time. I need to choose. And I think that in itself shows how I feel about this topic, because I love picture books and comic books. So I have one person watching according to this, and it is 9 p.m., so I can start. Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Anna Martin, and I teach Latin and Greek and classics and anything along those lines that I get asked to teach. And today I'm going to talk about picture books and how we can use them to introduce the world of the Romans and the Greeks to younger children. And without further ado, because I'm quite aware that tomorrow is Black Friday, I'm going to just start talking about the books I have and I really enjoy reading and why. It's not going to be an in-depth review of each of the books. This is something that you can do. You can go to your local library or to your local bookshop and do that yourself and see if you like them. Today, I'm just giving you the ideas and telling you, well, these are the books, that's where you can find them. So the first one, and I'm sure, it's a shame I can't hear what people say when I show the books. I think it'll be like, oh, Meg and the Romans. Now, this one is great for very young children if you want to start getting them into your own hobby, which is, in my case, Roman literature. This is a very simple book. Children around 5 or so, they can already read it themselves. And it has some key words that are in Latin. It has like Britannia, Londinium. So it's really interesting. I would suggest get it. Now, recommended retail price, according to this, $6.99. You might even be able to find it for cheaper. It's a steal. Isn't this the most amazing sock filling? Meg and the Romans. Children love the cat and the witch. There's going to be a theme with cats today, I feel. I was going through the books and like half of them have cats in them. So, Meg and the Romans, that was the first recommendation. Then another recommendation I was going to do is not any book in particular, but it's books for an age range that perhaps we don't think too much about them. It's the graded readers. Like I have a lot of them in Catalan, which will be not very helpful for some of the members of the audience, although I will also show them. But there are also some in English. Like, for example, this Ready to Read collection has this one on Pandora. And I find my daughter loves it. I love it as well because it has a very strange version of the myth. It's obviously not easy to present Greek myths to very young children for obvious reasons. But I think it's brave to do so. And these books help us because they contain a lot of humor and the images say things that maybe we wouldn't say, but you can imagine. So yeah, here we have, this is an hilarious representation of Pandora. This is her trying to open the box. It has to be up there with some of my favorite representations of Pandora. And you would think, oh, there's so much potential for sexist content in these books. And yes, there is. And we're not going to hide it. The ancient world was quite ruthless for women. But I find that this book has some hidden humor. I don't know if I'm making this up or it's there. It doesn't really matter, does it? If it can be found, whether they intended it to be there or not. But at the beginning of the story, we're told, long ago, the Greeks wondered why their gods sometimes let bad things happen to them. But then the people writing this story, if you notice, they're all men. So very interesting. Then we have all the things coming out of Pandora's box, and they're like some little insects, and then she gets some wounds. So, well, anyway, a recommendation. And these ones are mega cheap as well. and they're graded, so you can read them at the right time. This is probably age 5, 6, something like that. Then, in the same spirit, I also have the graded readers in Catalan. And you're going to say, well, I don't read Catalan. Some of you will. Yes, you don't have to, actually, because I think they're worth getting just for the pictures. Look at this beautiful myth. Now, I have one member of the audience. Maybe that member of the audience will know what myth is in this book I'm reading. There is a lag, so maybe it will come, maybe not. Another one I have that I really enjoy is the one with the Trojan Horse. Again, these books give you a great opportunity to just look through the pictures and talk about what is happening. This one is particularly useful because it has the cursive script as well. But as I say, these are books that you can use as oral stories where you're just talking about the story, discussing, and looking at the different elements of it. Then, if you go a level up, there's a whole collection where all the books are $4.99 if you buy them new, or if you get them from the library. They're free, and you should be able to find them. This collection is First Greek Myths. It has lovely illustrations, okay text, parental help needed for younger children. For older children, they can read it themselves, and they are quite fun. So, again, stocking fillers, definitely these ones. Then I wanted to talk about the halfway there ones where you want to read them with them, but you see that they could start reading them on their own. And if, again, this one is a Catalan collection, but there's plenty of equivalents in English where you get a short myth in one story. And I think these are very handy because they're the perfect size for bedtime. And again, you may be wondering, the Argonauts, shock horror, how are you going to tell the myth of Medea to a 6-7-year-old? You're going to say, oh, and then she just kills the children in revenge, and that's the end of the story. It is quite hard to have a story where the mother kills her own children. But the beauty of Greek myth is that there can be many versions. And in antiquity, there were already many versions. So don't be afraid when you get a mythology book for your child to go for a version that sits comfortably with what you want to talk about. Yeah. So, for example, in this book, when it gets to the end, and it's not a spoiler. You need to know the story before you read it for this special tragic effect. When he leaves Medea, Jason leaves Medea, and Medea wants to take revenge, and she kills the children. Now, in the book, instead of having, as we all know from the tragedy, a messenger coming and saying, oh, this horrible thing has happened, etc., and then she appears on the roof, what we have here, it's a beautiful ending that speaks a lot to the parents, where we know the story, and the children can imagine that something dark is happening, but they don't need all the information. And children do not need all the information all the time, really, when they're very young. So this book says, this is the one with the Argonauts, but this story doesn't end well. Proud Medea was very happy of being a queen and living with Jason, but he was in love with Creusa and abandoned her. And at that point, Medea ran away riding a flying dragon, which is great. Now, every parent who has read the Medea will be able to interpret this picture. And the colors tells us about what is happening in the death of the children, but it's not there. And I think it's a beautiful way to start thinking about the myths. This one, by the way, has great illustrations. And that's the last Catalan one I show, promise. Another one, and this one is for all the children to read on their own, but also for the whole family to have in the coffee table. This is Gods, Men and Monsters, and I grew up with this book. This has a funny story. I used to take it repeatedly out of the library in my hometown, like all the time. It was always at home. Looking back, I think I should have asked my parents to buy it for me. I mean, I had other books. We could have found this one, but for some reason, it was a book that I constantly out of the library. And I remember being quite aware of that because it was at the time where you had a little card at the back of the book and they wrote the date, and I could see my name there repeatedly. Now, the beauty of this book is that the illustrations are divine. Again, for copyright, I'm not going to sit here showing you through all the illustrations, but I will definitely recommend it to you. I managed to get my hands in an English version. I once visited a school, it was 7 years ago, I think. Yes. And I saw the book on a shelf and I had not seen it for 20 years. And I said, oh, my childhood book. This is how I got started on Greek mythology. And the lady gave it to me. So that's how I came to have the English version. So yes, it has lovely diagrams like this one with all the gods in it. And the text is very interesting. And I find as well that the images tell a version of the myth that is very interesting. Like, look at this one. We have Persephone going to the underworld. Or should I show you my favorite? Let's find this. I love this one. The Hydra of Lerna. Fantastic. So yes, definitely find this book. It is quite old. As I say, when I was 10, it was already around. So it should not be difficult to find even secondhand, really. And it's one that you should find in libraries. Beautiful illustrations. Then I can already see I've taken too many books. I've been chatting for 12 minutes. I haven't interacted with anyone, and there's still a massive pile next to me. So please do shout hello, say where you're joining us from. And if you have any book recommendations or any questions or any very specific piece of advice that you'd like to have, do ask, put it in the chat. I am reading it here and I will reply. So the next recommendation is a book I absolutely love. And it's a bit borderline whether it should be in this presentation, because I said I was going to talk about the Romans and the Greeks and classicity. And this book is a book based on a 9th century story, which is the Pangurban. And this is one of my all-time favorite books. And yes, I do recommend it for children who have an interest in the ancient world. Now, this book is called The White Cat and the Monk. It has fantastic illustrations, and it is an adaptation of the Pangurban, which, if there are any Irish people here, please correct my pronunciation. It's a story that we have from the 9th century. It was an Irish monk who wrote it in his notebook. In that notebook, there's different things. There's like a bit of Virgil, there's a bit of Greek, there's a bit of astronomy. So it must have been where he was writing all his stuff. And one evening he was bored and he wrote this beautiful story in Irish about him and his cat. And how did I find the link to say that it's important that we use this with children who are learning Latin? Well, this monk is sitting in a monastery and he's working on a beautiful book in Latin. And also, I think it presents a beautiful relationship between readers and their books and the authors of the past and the authors of the present. And I think only because of that, everyone should have it at home. And for those of you who have been working from home, what do you say about this? We have the monk in his scriptorium working like we are with Tom, and then his cat next to him. The story of any work from home person who has a cat is in this book, and a beautiful way to introduce the transmission of manuscripts. Why not? Telling how did we get all those texts from antiquity? Well, it was thanks to people like this monk who sat there in the dark with a candle, copying and copying and copying for hours. Yeah. Okay. So I am going to hurry this up a little bit because otherwise I will not finish with my pile of books. So I'm going to do 2 in a row. Usborne has lovely illustrated ones. I would recommend that. They're great to have around the house. This one, for example, they're nice and short chapters that you can read before bed. Again, beautiful illustrations. This one as well ends with the Odyssey. Again, if you think, oh, I can do the Odyssey, like the whole of the Odyssey. Yes, it's the whole of the Odyssey up to the very end where he kills the suitors. However, he doesn't kill the maids. You can imagine, though, because you see the maids around, but they're not the ones cleaning. So there's a discrepancy there. But yeah, definitely a really good version. I really like it. I don't think we need to tell them the stories exactly as they appear in a particular author and say, I'm going to tell you the Odyssey according to Homer. Not necessary. Same for this one. Nice versions of the myths. Now, the great advantage of this one here in particular is that if you have an older learner, say, I don't know, from 9 onwards, who struggles a bit with reading, say, for example, dyslexia, the font is very nice and big. The lines are separated, and everywhere there is a pastel colored background of one color or another. So sometimes it's bluish, sometimes it's creamish. So it's a great choice if you want to get somebody who struggles a bit with the letters on the page and the typical white background with tiny letters on it. This book is a great option for learners who struggle with reading on the page. Okay, so that they can read it on their own. That's a great choice. Okay, let's move on to something very similar. So I'm going to go very quickly with this one. This one is 100 Greek Myths. Again, same principle, lovely illustration. Look at the constellations here. It's a jewel of a book, beautifully written. And the added interest that you hear all the tales from the story of this one man. So you get to you get the myths and also the story of this traveler that goes around. Yeah, so another great choice. This is the publishing house. I need to find it. Is Orion, and the authors are Coates and Lewis. I guess I will send this in the newsletter because I don't think you can write down everything. It's a bit annoying for you if you have to. Then should we move to the comic or graphic novel bit? And those are better for, I would say, for all the children, GCSE upwards. However, I have to say, I find my children absolutely love them because they like to look at the pictures. They don't read it. I don't read them to them. They just really enjoy looking through the pictures. And this is one of my favorites. These are illustrated by Marcia Williams. And I have 2 here. There are more. There's plenty more. Look, it's, yeah. But I'll talk about the 2 I have here. So I have the Iliad and the Odyssey, and they have plenty of humor, and then Greek myths. Yeah. So to give you an idea of what it's like, as you can say, it doesn't make for easy reading. It's like a Where's Wally story. So it would be perfect for all the children or for younger children. However, you can spend some time looking at the little details in the comic strip, and there's plenty of humor to get you through the stories. Then another example of graphic novel style. I know I've been saying for a while now, oh, this is my favorite. Oh, that is my favorite. Now, this one is one of the best ones, and I've had it only very recently. It's called Escape from Pompeii, and the author is Christina Ballet. And the beauty of this one is that, like the ones we saw last week, it allows you to get into the story and learn about the Romans. It's not so much mythological, it's more about the society and the people living in it. But also, it has the most incredible illustrations. So I think everyone should have this in their living room. I'm in love with this book. Beautifully written as well. So that is Escape from Pompeii from Christina Ballet. Another beautifully illustrated graphic novel. And this one is amazing, particularly if you have a young one that likes manga. Look at this. It's the Iliad in plenty of detail, with beautiful illustrations, very graphic, so that you can even use it side by side with the proper Homer. And it even, I just like to have it on the desk because it looks so beautiful. So definitely this would be a great present, either for a grown-up or for the GCSE A-level student age, so 14 onwards. Fantastic choice. I have to say, it is quite gory. Like, it doesn't spare detail. But then that's what the Iliad is like. So if they're in the Iliad, they can read that. Same for the Aeneid here. This one is fantastic. And why do I like this one so much? Well, first, because in popular culture, we don't generally find a lot of the Aeneid around. You find a lot of Odyssey and Iliad, but not that much Aeneid. So it's lovely to see Aeneas given a modern twist. And then also I find, I don't know if you've watched, it's a bit far-fetched, but the, what's that called? The Walking Dead. It has all this sort of aesthetic about it. And I look at the River Tiber. Isn't that a fantastic? For those of us who are used to the classical River Tiber, this is just priceless. Yeah. And so definitely, I think this is not just for the younger ones, but also for parents and for everyone in the house, really. Yeah. So, and this is by Grimbaugh and Sosa. I don't know who they are, but they've done an incredibly amazing job. It does go with the imagination, but that's what we want those stories for. We want to travel with them and we want to have new experiences with them. Otherwise, it would be too boring. And finally, I get to the comic books or the picture books in actual Latin. And I did start talking about this last week, and I know that you may be wondering, oh, should I get one? Is it worth it? Are we going to read or not? And there's no answer to that. It depends on how nerdy or geeky you are, or how much you actually like the original. So I'm going to give you 3 different examples. There are plenty, but I'm going to give you 3 that I think exemplify very well the sort of options that you have. Now, the first one is Olivia, the Essential Latin Edition. This would be an example of a book that you can give to a young learner. By young, I mean GCSE. And they will be able to read it in Latin and understand it because, and I'm going to show a little example, the pictures make quite clear what the text is saying. And there isn't a lot of text, and the text is of a level that for a GCSE student, very accessible. This one is a delight to read. It's lots of fun, beautiful illustration, of course, and the students will be familiar with Olivia and love it. So there you go. There's Olivia the Roman there. Another one which I love having, but I don't find that easy to read, even though it's great quality, is the Latin version of the Gruffalo. It's a work of art in itself. So it's elegiac couplets. So if you're doing any Ovid, this is the sort of language that you want to be reading. This is definitely either for younger children who really like the story, know the story by heart, and will find it a giggle to read in Latin, or for more serious readers, A-level and above, who will actually dive into it and try to understand it and enjoy how beautifully written it is. And I have arrived to my last book that I will recommend, and this is the whole collection of Asterix and Obelix. They are not very easy to understand in Latin, so again, if you want the children to be able to read it, I would recommend A-level. However, there's so much fun just like looking at the pictures. There's plenty of details. You can get lost in it. And if I don't know, I don't think they're as trendy like they used to be when I was young, but if the students are, if the children are familiar with them, they will really enjoy the fact that they're getting it in Latin. Interestingly as well, they come with a little vocabulary aid, which I find invaluable, because it's not only in Latin, it's so the vocabulary aid is in Latin, then German, then English, then French, then Italian, then Spanish. So plenty of fun for the linguist here. Now, I'm running out of time. I see I have been talking for 30 minutes and I have not interacted with anyone. So hopefully you will come up with some questions and you can write them down in the chat. I will leave the details there of my newsletter, which is where I'll put the list of books I've mentioned today. And hopefully we'll get to see each other next week. I haven't decided what I am going to talk about next week, because it's a busy time of the year, it's dark and it's difficult, and I want to do something that's lots of fun. So yeah, maybe you can help me choose. Actually, I was thinking one option could be looking at some of the stories of the Bible in Latin, like from the New Testament, using the Vulgata version and reading them. They're very easy to read, so it's lovely Latin to read in the lead up to Christmas. Or perhaps we could do some make DIY wax tablet, which I've been experimenting with recently. So yeah, any interest that you have, just write it in the comments and I'll just do it. I'm open to everything. I'm just getting started with this, quite liking it. Bit awkward when you're talking to the empty screen, but still fun. So yeah, just let me know what you'd like to talk about and I will. See you, everyone. For those in the States, I know that you're not here because you're celebrating Thanksgiving, as you should be. I send you from the bottom of my heart the best wishes for the celebration. I hope you enjoy, even if you cannot see your family, which might be a bit, might be hard for many. So have a good Thanksgiving, and thank you, everyone, for being with me.